More political turmoil in Washington, D.C. as Republicans order an impeachment inquiry into U.S. President Joe Biden. Hi, everyone. I'm Sean Caleb, sitting in for Anand Naidu, and you're watching The Heat. Welcome, everyone. Republicans have ramped up their pressure on U.S. President Joe Biden, and the fallout could very well impact Biden's chances of winning re-election. On Tuesday, Speaker of the House Kevin McCarthy announced an impeachment inquiry into Biden, and he did so unilaterally, meaning without having a vote in the House. McCarthy wants 3 congressional committees to investigate Biden and his family for evidence of financial wrongdoing or corruption.
We are committed to getting the answers for the American public. Nothing more, nothing less. We will go wherever the evidence takes us. House Republicans have uncovered serious and credible allegations into President Biden's conduct. Taken together, these allegations paint a picture of a culture of corruption.
The White House is denouncing the move as, quote, extreme politics at its worst. For reaction to how all of this could possibly play out, joining us now, Niambi Carter. She is an associate professor in the School of Public Policy at the University of Maryland. And with me here in studio, Arthur Estopinan. Help me with that.
Estopinan.
Estopinan. I apologize. We were just talking 2 minutes ago. He is the president of the Estopinan Group, and also joining us in this discussion, Jacquie Luqman. She is the co-host of By Any Means Necessary on Radio Sputnik. And with us as well from New York, Aaron Matei. He is the host of Pushback with Aaron Matei on the Grayzone. I want to welcome all of you to the program. Niambi, I kind of want to start with you. Let's go back to a little bit. Donald Trump has been complaining, if for lack of a better word, to so many people that everybody seemed to be out to get him, basically his take on all this. And the word is that he's been privately working behind the scenes to push forward, to get the House to move forward and launch this inquiry. Your thoughts on that? Where do you think this will go? And do you think that President Trump's fingerprints are on this?
Well, I'm not sure if his fingerprints are on it. I mean, he certainly has power, but he's not in office. And these people, like Kevin McCarthy, don't have to bend to his will, but certainly he's quite popular. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is at least a move to please or placate Donald Trump, and also fend off questions about McCarthy's own loyalties and whether he is in fact a good speaker, if he's a strong enough speaker. And of course, this is just to deflect attention from Donald Trump's many indictments and other sorts of questions about his unsavory behavior over these last few decades. So I think this is certainly not going to harm Donald Trump. I think it'll probably do more harm to the credibility of the party and to Kevin McCarthy.
Yeah, Arthur, let's pick up on that, because that's one thing that people are looking at right now. McCarthy, by not choosing to take this to the House first to vote on it, and there are at least a half a dozen U.S. representatives who are members of the GOP who have come out and said, look, I have a problem with this. I haven't seen anything so far to indicate Biden or his family would have done anything wrong. Is this, as Niambi kind of pointed out, a sign that McCarthy's grip on power is so tenuous that he must answer to people in the House who have been very concerned about the way things have unfolded? And it took him, what, 15 tries to become Speaker back in January 7th.
I think that his leadership as Speaker of the House and the Congress is pretty solid. He's reflecting, in my opinion, the will of the American people, at least the Republicans, that feel that there's a 2-tier justice system, in that the Biden corruption and the Biden family have gotten away with $20 million, with 20 shell companies, monies from Pakistan, from Russia, from Ukraine, and for 9 family members, and yet nothing has come from DOJ. And so the American people are very upset. So in my opinion, he's reflecting the anger of the American people, that they feel that there's a persecution against President Trump because there's no evidence of wrongdoing with the 91 charges, but yet with Biden and his family, they're free as, still receiving, or they received the millions of dollars when he was vice president of the United States.
Arthur, I want you to listen to what the White House spokeswoman had to say about the way this unfolded.
You see Republicans in Congress, right? They have spent all year investigating the president. That's what they've spent all year doing, and have turned up with no evidence, none, that he did anything wrong. I mean, that is what we've heard over and over again from their almost year-long investigation, and that's because the president didn't do anything wrong.
Let's pick up on that. There are thousands of documents that have been subpoenaed and have been given to the House Republicans, and the allegations are they have found nothing, and a lot of their own members say that.
So the evidence of checking accounts with $20 million, $10 million from Burisma to Hunter
Burisma
Biden.
being the entity within Ukraine.
Yes. So that's the 20 shell companies. I mean, the Republicans in the House Ways Committee, in government oversight and judiciary with Chairman Jordan, they all have found more and more information which has been collaborated by the IRS whistleblowers. These are government officials that publicly stated in Congress that their investigation against Hunter Biden was impeded. They were not allowed to continue the investigation, and the judge in Delaware thought that the plea agreement was way too generous for Mr. Hunter Biden. So, she could say whatever she wants. Right. We live in a free country, but the reality is that the Republicans are finding more and more facts that President Biden is totally linked with his son's business, foreign business.
Well, we know that the Democrats are standing behind Biden. And Jacquie, I want you to listen to this bite from the Democratic leader in the House of Representatives.
There is not a shred of evidence that President Joe Biden has engaged in wrongdoing. There is not a shred of evidence that President Joe Biden has committed an impeachable offense. There is not a shred of evidence that President Joe Biden has committed a crime.
Your thoughts on that?
Well, I can't speak to the evidence because I'm not privy to what the documents that the Republicans claim they have, that Kevin McCarthy claims he has. But I think there is plenty of smoke there. There is plenty of an appearance of impropriety. There is plenty of inferences or suggestions that there was influence peddling that was going on between Hunter Biden and some of these foreign entities. The smoke there, the inference, doesn't mean that there is absolute evidence of it, but to say that there's not a shred of evidence, that there's nothing there, I wouldn't go that far. But then again, I'm not a member of the Democratic Party who has, pledged allegiance to Joe Biden. So,
well, let's talk about the fact, to what degree is Hunter Biden going to be a liability moving forward in the months up to the general election?
For people who are committed to voting blue, no matter who, they're not going to care. But I do think that people are very wary of not just Joe Biden and this, this story of corruption that wasn't supposed to be a story, that wouldn't go away because it actually is a story, and it is a very legitimate and very troubling story. I think he will be a liability, along with Biden's not great economic policies. We have children who have the number of children in poverty has just doubled since the end of the pandemic era programs that were implemented to help people during the pandemic that the Biden administration did not fight to extend. So people are hurting economically. And so these issues of corruption that Biden acts as if aren't an issue when there are serious questions to be answered about this issue, the economic issues, the continued aggression toward China.
All right.
It's just everything is a liability for Joe Biden right now, and he is not in a good place leading up to 2024.
Aaron, I want to thank you for being patient up till now. Sorry it took me so long to get to you. But I want to ask you about a couple of things. One, the fact that Speaker McCarthy took this action unilaterally. And second, we keep coming back to this because it has been reported over and over that former President Trump did meet with prominent Republicans and he did push behind the scenes to have this done. I want to get your thoughts on those two issues.
I think two things are true. There certainly is a desire for retribution by Trump and his allies. Trump was impeached twice. The first time he was impeached over the issue of Ukraine, in part because he asked the Ukrainian government to look into the issue of Biden's pressuring of Ukraine to fire the prosecutor, Viktor Shokin, who was investigating Burisma, where Hunter Biden had that lucrative $80,000 plus per month board seat. So Trump definitely wants revenge. There's no doubt about that. McCarthy's under pressure to appease the Trump base, which still dominates the party. But I also think there's something to look at here. By the standards established by Democrats, there is more than enough grounds to investigate Biden here. Remember that Trump and his campaign were investigated for more than 2 years by the FBI for being suspected Russian conspirators. And based on what? Based on, we're told, one of his low-level campaign volunteers talking about some kind of suggestion of Russian help to his campaign, which turned out to be non-existent because there was no collusion at all. That was a scam concocted by the Clinton campaign. But based on that standard, then there's more than enough grounds to investigate Biden here. Some of it's already been discussed. You have Hunter Biden taking this lucrative board seat. You have the U.S. government praising Viktor Shokin up until very, very late, when finally all of a sudden something shifts and all of a sudden Joe Biden calls for Shokin's firing. But before that was happening, people like Victoria Nuland were praising Shokin for his, quote,
But there were other nations also calling for that as well at the same time.
They came on board after the U.S. did. If you look at the timeline, you have U.S. government officials saying that Shokin's actually doing a not bad job and approving loan guarantees to Ukraine. All of a sudden, you have a timeline where Burisma starts asking Hunter Biden for help. There's a meeting that happens where Hunter Biden calls back to D.C. Joe Biden is in on some of those calls, and all of a sudden things shift. And look, maybe that's all coincidence. I don't know, but certainly worth looking into.
And he goes to the Council of Foreign the Council of Foreign Affairs, is it that here, and he brags that he was able to get the prosecutor fired.
He being Biden.
Yes, President Biden. If not, we would not. The United States would not support them with the $1 billion in military aid.
Niambi, one thing that's definitely going to happen. We are going to be talking about this for months and months and months. What is this going to do to Biden's efforts to try to become president again in 2024?
Well, look, I mean, I think it won't matter to people who really like Joe Biden. It won't matter to people who are fearful about what another 4 years under a Donald Trump presidency could look like if Donald Trump is in fact the nominee, but also fearful of perhaps what other Republicans may do. It won't matter. I don't think that it's going to be anything, I guess, any more detrimental than his already sort of low favorability ratings right now. I mean, people are not excited about Joe Biden as a candidate. So I don't know that this will do anything other than further confirm for some that they shouldn't bother to get out of bed that day and cast a ballot for Joe Biden. I don't think that'll necessarily push people to vote for Republicans, but I definitely think for people who are on the margins, people who are really just not enthusiastic, this could be enough to make them stay home.
Well, let me ask you about this, because we saw the way he performed at G20 and then Vietnam afterward. If we have these very awkward moments where he looks every bit of his age, that is certainly, one would think, is going to have some kind of impact on people one way or the other.
Maybe, but I mean, our government is full of old people. I mean, quite frankly, I mean, none of these people are spring chickens. And if we think about Donald Trump, who does seem to have maybe a little more fire in the belly than Joe Biden, I mean, he does have good moments. But yes, we've seen Mitch McConnell freeze up over the past few weeks. And so this is something, I think, a larger discourse that we need to have about politicians and age and what it is that we think comes with youth. right? I mean, yes, it might be people who look a little more with it, but with age comes experience.
Right.
But I think there has to be some middle ground here. I don't think anybody is excited about an 81-year-old president at this point. And I think we have to be honest about people's preferences here. And yeah, this person may have a lot of experience, but it could also be the case this person is very much out of touch with the voters that are voting for them right now. And so turning people off has to be a concern, because this is sort of what builds voters, is when people start to enter the political process. Who was there? What do they remember? It's why Jesse Jackson was so important to the Democratic Party in the 1980s, right?
Absolutely.
Jesse Jackson got a lot of young people enthusiastic about participating. I don't know that we can say that this go round.
Or,
right? I don't know
or
that
President Obama.
Yeah, President Obama.
President Obama.
President Obama,
Yeah.
absolutely. But I think again, we have to be very honest here that this sort of metric of just having old white guys on the top of tickets is going to always win elections. I don't think that's true anymore. And I do think for younger voters, like my students, the appetite for something different is there. They are not enthusiastic about people who are older than some of their grandparents to be their president.
Yeah. Arthur, I want to kind of switch gears a bit and go back to McCarthy. This is someone who dearly wanted to be House Speaker. He made that very clear. And the fact it was such a painful, drawn-out process that we saw over and over and over. Then on the 14th vote, everybody thought he had it, but Gates voted present instead of supporting Biden. Gates has been one of the harshest critics of McCarthy so far. I'm sorry, McCarthy. So tell me your thoughts on his hold on that speaker position. You said that he's pretty solid right now, but it would take very little to knock him off that pedestal.
It is because, as you know, the Republicans have a very slim majority, a very slim majority. But the reality is that democracy is not a clean little game that everyone walks, one behind the other. At least for the Republican Party, that's not the case. There's a lot of different people, personalities, goals, etc. So, but the fact of the matter is that Speaker McCarthy is an experienced legislator, and he, I believe, has the support of the overwhelming majority of the Republican Party, and they're holding him responsible to make sure that he follows through with the different priorities that the Republican conference has.
He has come out and said, look, I'm pursuing this the way I am. Nancy Pelosi did it. But for some of his GOP colleagues in the House, that isn't enough.
The fact of the matter is that the irony that we're discussing this is that when President Trump was speaking with President Zelensky about the corruption, alleged corruption between Hunter Biden and Joe Biden being involved over Ukraine, it's now that he was impeached over that, but now we know that it's true, that there are allegations of corruption. So it's just very sad. The whole situation, as Americans, we have a lot of problems. One of my colleagues here mentioned the economy. We have open borders, that we have people from all over the world coming. We don't even know who they are. We have crime in major cities where we have disinfected young people that are breaking into different shops and establishments. Yeah. So we have a lot of problems in this country, and the Biden administration.
Hang on. I'll get you. Hang on, Jackie.
And the Biden administration has really been ineffective. We need a new leader, whether the Democrats want to put Kamala Harris as their nominee. I don't know who, but we need a new leader to take the mantle and the leadership to take the reins back in course.
Jackie, do you think that a lot of voters, as Niambi did talk about, are just fed up with this? Like, is this the best the United States can do? Is this what we're going to be facing for the next 5 years? One investigation after another, one party basically going after the other.
Exactly. And what was just said about, we have a lot of problems in this country and all of the terrible things that people are doing, the open borders, and we don't know where these people are coming from. Well, if the United States government run by Democrats or Republicans, it doesn't matter which party is control of the government, would stop destabilizing the countries, the governments of other countries that they don't like when they want to implement a socialist government, people would not leave their countries, because nobody wants to take that trek thousands of miles through 3-4 countries and leave home because they have nothing better to do. They do it because they literally cannot live, make a living, and raise their families in their countries. And that exists, that happens because of U.S. imperialism. Crime in this country, we've known since the turn of the century that poverty drives crime. But
Okay.
neither party, Democrat nor Republican, ever wants to talk about any of these social issues in relation to the issue of poverty, because neither party wants to do anything about
Right.
poverty in the
But
richest
more government
country this
involvement is not the
planet
solution.
has
More
probably
government,
ever seen.
in my opinion,
And
more
oh,
government
stop it.
involvement is not the
Stop with
solution.
more
Okay.
government involvement isn't going to
Okay.
solve anything,
Jackie,
because
let me
if
ask
the
you.
government can fund war in Ukraine the way it has been, it can certainly make sure people have enough food to eat in this country.
Okay, Jackie, let me ask you about Kamala Harris. To what degree do you think she has been just a huge disappointment to Democrats? Many who had hoped she would be much more out in front and center, much more of a partner with the U.S. president.
I think the Democratic Party is very cautious in how they are positioning her now. She served her role as a way to bring people into the Democratic Party to support Joe Biden for his presidential bid
Hmm.
who otherwise wouldn't have. She was a representation of what Biden needed, a black woman to run as vice president to get the black woman vote for Democrats who weren't excited about Biden then, but were, needed that extra push to vote for him, even as people were very tired of and did not want another 4 years of Trump. So she has served her purpose. And I don't think that the Democratic Party had ever hoped that maybe she would be the successor to Biden. I think she was very cynically used by the Democratic Party to do exactly what she did, was to get votes for Biden that I don't think they would have otherwise.
Aaron, let's get back to the impeachment for a second here. It's not a foregone conclusion, obviously. The three different House committees are going to be looking at this. This is going to go on for months, but in the end, nothing could happen. It could be investigated, no impeachment, they could be impeached, then moved on to the Senate, which would have to make the decision of, yes, let's move forward on impeachment proceedings, or letting it go. And considering the Democrats do have that slight balance there, a lot of people give that very little chance. To what degree do you think that this could backfire against more moderate Republicans in areas where Biden still does have support?
It could definitely backfire. One example is what happened when Democrats tried to impeach Trump over his Ukraine shenanigans, the first impeachment of Trump. Trump ended that impeachment trial with the highest approval ratings of his presidency, because people just didn't care about whether or not Trump was freezing U.S. weapons to Ukraine. It wasn't the top priority of most Americans, who care more about healthcare and jobs and all the basics of life. And that's something worth considering here. There's some partisan fighting right now about Hunter Biden and his dealings in Ukraine. Let's remember, this policy in Ukraine is pretty bipartisan. Even the corruption is bipartisan. Paul Manafort, who was Trump's Republican campaign manager, he made a lot of money in Ukraine, also exploiting the dysfunction there, making millions of dollars. And the policy that began all this, which is a coup in Ukraine in 2014, which the U.S. backed, and because of that coup, Biden became very influential, and that's why Hunter Biden got his lucrative job, is because Joe Biden all of a sudden became very important. This has fueled not only a civil war in Ukraine, it's now fueled a full-blown proxy war with the U.S. and Russia on opposing sides, and now it's fueling a possible impeachment for Biden. So because both parties united behind this policy of coups and proxy wars, now it's causing this domestic fallout. And rather than focusing on meddling in other countries, as Jackie talked about, let's focus on the issues here at home.
Aaron, real quickly, do you think, as this goes on, could this possibly help Joe Biden down the road?
It could help Biden if this turns out to be an overblown case and there's not much evidence, but I doubt that, given what we already know. I mean, it's pretty unusual. No matter what else comes out, what's known already, that Hunter Biden got a very lucrative board seat with Burisma right after his father's administration helped back a coup in Ukraine, that in itself is damning enough. And I don't think the more that comes out about that, I don't think that will help Joe Biden.
Okay, Arthur, let's look forward to who is going to be running against the presumed Democratic presidential candidate. Donald Trump has overwhelming lead in all the polls right now. Is there anyone out there that you believe could really challenge Trump? Anybody, any way that you see Trump does not get this nomination?
Not according to the polls at this time, but we're still early in the electoral process, as you know.
But what's your gut tell you? Because you've been on Capitol Hill a long time.
I do like Nikki Haley. She demonstrated a lot of fire from South Carolina. I also like Vivek Ramaswamy, who is a very promising GOP candidate and a political leader. He has the vision, he has energy, he has desire, and he's not the traditional Republican that a lot of people are looking to support. So I believe that those two, but I do believe that, and Ron DeSantis, in my opinion, I'm originally from Florida, I'm a Floridian, he demonstrated a lot of leadership, and he really helped Floridians a lot. But I don't think that in the national, it has translated into a national election. But I do believe that President Trump, because of his experience dealing with China, with Russia, with Iran, with North Korea, I believe that the American people are going to support him for this election.
Okay, Jackie, last question. We're running out of time here. I want to go back to Joe Biden's health because so much was made about Donald Trump toward the end of his term. But if you look at the way Biden has really performed, apparently, and I mean also recently, compared to the key grasp he had on issues in old video. Your thoughts on that?
Regarding his kind of apparently deteriorating health, I mean, I try not to be ageist in critiquing Biden and what are not gaffes. These are his slips, his seeming not to know where he is, or just these are not gaffes as a media would like to make them. I don't think we should take them lightly. I think they do represent something troubling about the health and the ability of Joe Biden to continue for another term.
Jackie, I'm sorry, I have to cut you off. We're out of time. I would love to hear more. This is obviously a discussion that could go on. I want to thank our panel very much. I'm Sean Calebs here in Washington, D.C. Thanks so much for watching this edition of The Heat.